Hello and welcome to another episode of the Shakedown. With me, as always, my friends and yours, Baxty, and the one that they call Shazina, aka the A said. How are we doing, chaps? It doesn't matter how you are doing because there are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull first up. In fact, how are you doing? I've got to ask you properly. No, the rock business or kayfabe, because it feels like it's been 10 years ago. Oh, look at this. Baxty's just moved out of position all of a sudden. Go on. How are you doing? How are you doing, gents?
Yeah, all right. It has been a while. It's how have you been, Cameron? It's literally like stream and then we're back on a stream again.
Mate, the sadly for me, the F1 beats never ever. Sleeps never, never. Not now, not ever. It needs to be covered. I mean, someone's got to cover it, eh? Like, I be the change that you wish to see in the space or something like that, Shes. But a little birdie told me that you boys were out on the town Hungarian Grand Prix. Anyhow, was it?
Yeah, mate, it was great.
It was
Oh,
so
cheers,
good.
cheers.
Really,
Yeah,
really good fun.
yeah.
Um, like if you're gonna visit a European Grand Prix, or if you're gonna visit any Grand Prix, that's probably one of the last stalwarts. Really, really good race to go to.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It was phenomenal. We had amazing seats as well. So we were sat by the turn seven chicane, but because of the way that the track is in a bowl, we could actually see all the way up to turn one and could see them coming round. And
Yeah,
then
it was brilliant.
when they went through the chicane, we could see them sort of going into turn nine and 10. And then that was about it for us. But we could see so much. And Uh, yeah, I have to say that the trackside coverage as well, like we had screens that were keeping us up to date all the time. It was a fantastic experience. And if you've never been to a Grand Prix, I highly recommend going to Hungary. It's a amazing experience. And
Yeah.
Budapest is such a beautiful city.
Oh, cheers for that, Sir Baxter. I wish that I never asked now. Do you know what I mean? Way to make F1 fans jealous out here, just a tad. I will get to a Grand Prix at some point. For some reason, at the moment, I feel like my F1 is better ingested from behind the screen with a community. Do you know what I mean? Arguing back and forth, going through the streams and the nuts and bolts and ingesting it. Did you feel like you missed that? Because that's one of the things that I hear people say when they go to Grand Prix, that I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't track it. I could only track it to like one decimal place and all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a little bit in that. I didn't have multi-viewer on in front of me, and I did go back and watch it again afterwards with multi-viewer and stuff. And yeah, I mean, you could see how big that gap was between the front four and then Fernando Alonso doing his little Alonso train, which I don't know about you,
Chaos.
Baxter, but it wasn't quite that obvious, like in the race, like how much of a train was forming behind him, and how far back he was versus like what you could see.
Yeah, it took us a
Um,
little while to kind of click
to,
on
to,
that
yeah,
the
for that
the
to
front four had checked out, and then he was the one causing the bottleneck. And
yeah,
we weren't getting all of the radio as well. Like we could hear some of it coming through, but not all of
but
it.
not all of
So
it. And that
yeah,
and that was the thing, wasn't it? Martin Brundle, I think, in comms said like I'm so glad they play all this radio because we wouldn't have any clue what the story is that's going on
yeah,
behind the scenes without it. And that I think is probably the one thing that you miss. But yeah, the big compensation is that you see the cars as visceral. Like their line through six and seven, like you could really understand what the attitude of the car was as it was
yeah.
going through
We
and
could
how different
infer a
drivers.
lot from
Yeah,
how the lap time was going to go from how they went through that chicane. Like it was obvious on
absolutely.
Friday the McLarens were quicker than anybody else. It was obvious that the only person that could challenge them was Leclerc. He was the only one really taking on the chicane in the same way that the McLarens were. And then on Friday, and the Astons as well, we weren't surprised by that because they really got a lot out of that for them. So
Yeah, especially Stroll. Stroll had a fun little line through the
it
through the
did,
corner, and
yeah,
I think he really does like to have the rear of the car sort of quite loose.
yeah,
He was quite acrobatic through that
it
chicane, I
was. And then in
thought.
the race, we saw Max make overtakes there as well. He made three
Yeah,
overtakes into that chicane, and it was great to see because when you got when it's happening right in front of you, it's just like this is awesome. Like, yeah,
Uh, Go on then, chaps. Let's talk. There's a couple of things that we need to talk about right on the back of the Hungarian Grand Prix. In my humble opinion, the pick to click, the biggest story to come out of the race weekend was, of course, Sir Lewis Hamilton in his comments post-quali, I want to say. For the longest time this season, it feels like Sir Lewis has been able to lean on the fact that the car doesn't suit him. He doesn't have the rigidity at the rear. They can't run it low enough. Doesn't have the confidence through the high and medium speed twisties that he so depends on. And then all of a sudden, that holds water, right, until Mr. Charles Leclerc, aka modern day Jean Alesi, goes and drops it on pole. After which Lewis is like, every time, man, every time, in brackets and unsaid, I'm underperforming. Jumps out the car and in the post-qualifying scrum says they might need to change the driver. Shez, to that, sir, you react how?
Yeah, I think having had like 3 or 4 days to percolate on it, I feel like I can understand it a little bit. It's like you're doing your school project. I don't know about you guys, but when I was at school, I was really proud of my school projects. Like, I had to get a good grade, couldn't help it. And you put like loads and loads of work into it. Like, you do all the research, you put all the graphs together, you stick them all in a nice little way. You present it all nice. You show it to everyone. You're really proud of it, and then bam, you get the marks back, and you got like a D minus. And that's what I feel happened to Lewis. Like, he did all this work. He was talking all that stuff on Thursday about I'm trying to push this team. I don't want to be Sebastian. I don't want to be Fernando. What happened to them isn't going to happen to me. And then he turns up in qualifying. And we'll talk about like the actual objective time that he was behind Charles, because I think that's important. But the end result is that he's knocked out in Q2, and that condemns him to an absolute shocker of a race where he's stuck lifting and coasting from lap 3 and not able to make any inroads. Both of those events, you're going to get out of the car, you've done all this work, and you come out in front of the cameras, and you're like, the hell do I have to do? That was, it was just awful. It must be me. And I felt, as Fred Vasseur said afterwards, this isn't demotivation, it's frustration at the position that he's finding himself in. But I think if he is able to step back from that a little bit and just take a look at take a big picture view of what has happened over the first sort of 13 odd races of this season, it's probably not quite as bleak an outlook as what he painted on Saturday and Sunday.
In what sense, Shez? Yeah, like colour me naive. Where's the hopium?
So I mean, I can list through all the stuff. I've talked about this earlier on today, in fact. But just look at what it is to go into a new team in 2025, right? There's only 2 big players that have moved from one team to another where there's already an incumbent at that team, and the other guy that's in the same position is Carlos Sainz, who's gone off to Williams and is up against Alex Albon, who's been there for 3 or 4 seasons, only 3 or 4 seasons actually. And Cameron, let me ask you a question. What did you think would happen when Carlos Sainz turned up at Williams against Alex Albon?
I thought he was going to destroy Alex.
Has he?
No.
No. And where was Carlos versus Charles last season in terms of qualifying pace, in terms of outright performance?
Yeah, but don't do the F1 maths thing, Shez, because that doesn't
But that's
work.
what this is. This
It's
is
fool's
maths.
gold, that.
It's not. It's not. That's where the actual gold is. That's where the answers lie. Because moving from one team to another in 2025 isn't the same as moving teams in 1996 or in 2010 or in 2015. These are highly complex machines that have, especially in the case of that Ferrari, it's been honed now to what
The same
Charles likes,
generation.
especially since 2023.
And I just know how it is.
He has, even if the car's ultimate performance isn't brilliant, he's still able to get what he needs out of it because he's been there running that car for 7 seasons. Lewis turns up, he has, there's a really good article in Motorsport magazine that came out just a couple of days ago. Adam Cooper wrote it. One of the biggest things I saw from that was that the engine telemetry, literally, Lewis was like, it's upside down. And you could take that as being like, okay, that's just Lewis talking nonsense. But science, who's gone in exactly the opposite direction from a Ferrari to a Mercedes, is saying exactly the same thing. Like, there's no way that you can jump into a car with an incumbent driver and do anything more than at least match them. That's it. That's all you can do. If you're doing that, you're doing well. And he's what? Over the course of the first 13 races, Lewis is only 0.2% behind Charles. And coming into Spa and Hungary, he had out-qualified Leclerc for the previous 4 races. 4 of the last 5 races. So it's not like he's doing badly.
Wow.
It's just you have to change your point of reference a little bit and take all of those things into account.
But hang on, Shez, you don't win any points on a Saturday. And if I recall correctly, Lewis Hamilton is currently adrift of his teammate, who, by the way, is driving the same car, to the tune of how much, Shez? 42 points, chap. 42 points. And you mean to tell me that that's good for Lewis Hamilton, who's a 7-time champion?
At no point
Mount
did I say this was
Rushmore
good.
of Formula One. Okay,
At no
cool.
point did I say this was good.
What's the point that you're making then, Shez, that it's not that bad?
That it's not that bad, and what you're seeing at the moment is completely understandable within the context of moving from one team to another and giving yourself less than half a season to be up and running against arguably the quickest driver in Formula One over one lap, and a driver who has been in that team not just for the 7 seasons he's been in Formula One, but his entire junior career as well. Just look at that in terms of what that mountain is to climb, and then tell me that being 0.2% off that in qualifying, which is the only objective marker we have, isn't at least acceptable.
Actually, do me a favour and chime in on this, because your old Hungarian Grand Prix, mate. I'm not sure I'm buying what Shez is selling, if I'm honest with you, Joe.
I get what he's saying, because it has been tough for him, and honestly, I think given the problems that car has had since China, because how many times has Lewis really driven that car in anger? I think China Sprint was probably the only one. He's been consistently having to lift and coast pretty much all season, be it for brake issues, be it for floor issues, be it for whatever. But I think that Fred Vasseur came out and said that they underestimated how hard it would be for him. That it would be, he and Lewis underestimated how hard it would be for him to make that transition from Mercedes to Ferrari, and in the same way that Sainz has struggled at Williams. He's on average he's a 10th and a half off Charles in qualifying, which, if you consider that Charles is the fastest guy on the grid, that's not bad at all, I don't think, given that context. Yes, we expect more from Lewis Hamilton because he's Lewis Hamilton, the 7-time world champion, the GOAT, whatever. But has he lost a bit of pace in qualifying? Yeah, I think he has. I don't think it's unfair to say that. But there are major problems at that Ferrari team that not even he can cure. People will say, "Oh, actually, they're not doing that badly. They're in second place." Well, yes, because you have arguably the strongest driver lineup on the grid. And before this weekend, Lewis had scored points at every single weekend. So, I don't think he's been as bad as it's been made out, but that's because we hold Lewis to a higher standard, rightly, given his achievements in the sport.
It's just too techie. I just think, I don't know. He can't be, my point has always been this, right? He can't be Sir Lewis, the GOAT, arguably 7-time Mount Rushmore, first round Hall of Fame. You can't be all that and then start talking about extending grace, that he needs to acclimatise, that it was carbon industry brakes and now it's Brembo, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, it can't be those two things at the same time. 42 points, and again, Shez, to your point, chap, it's a difference in an extent, not kinds. If you wanted the super time thing, of course, Lewis Hamilton has been getting closer to Charles Leclerc, but you analyse his performance in its totality, right? Over the course, we're round 15 going into Zandvoort. So over the course of more than halfway, 14 rounds. Lewis Hamilton, God tier driver, the chap who I said I'd never see another F1 peddler go quicker than, is now 42 points behind Charles Leclerc. I'm not sure that this retirement conversation doesn't need to be taken more seriously than we're giving it, you know. I'm not sure. Maybe not this year. But how many more years do you think he's got left, Sebastian, really, after
I
this
don't think
year?
he's got that many years left. I mean, here's the thing. I think that this year, I think most people will be like, look, let's just wait and see how he does next year, because I think his main focus really has been getting into that team, building that team around him to then get going in 2026. I don't trust Ferrari to build him a car next year, or Charles. I don't trust them to build either of them a car next year that they're going to be happy with to be able to compete with the likes of Mercedes and McLaren and potentially Aston Martin. So then you start to have the conversation of, has he made the right move?
Oof.
I think at the moment, no. I don't think he
Oof.
has. Because whilst Fred has done a lot of good for Ferrari, I just think there is a lot there that he can't fix within 3 years. So I think that it's just, if that car is not as good as it should be next year, then I think he will probably himself just go, yeah, this ain't happening, I'm out of here.
Insane.
Because Ferrari was realistically his last roll of the dice.
Insane.
Mercedes were going to get rid of him at the end of this year. Let's be honest, they were. And whereas Ferrari were going to give him a
bloody door, Baxter. You can't just. Is Mercedes going to get?
Because he would have taken the +1, which would have been this year, and then they would have not offered him a contract, because they would have wanted to bring Kimi in next year.
Oh my good lord. This has just gone too chaotic. I don't even know. I've got nothing to say back to that, Baxter. That Mercedes are going to get rid of. This might be more blasphemous than us talking about the extent to which Sir Lewis has underperformed. Sir John says, moving amongst teams today is vastly different from previous decades. The proprietary intellectual property technology speaking cannot be understated. Fair play. Not a bad shout, Sir John Perry, as always. Issa says, Sir Lewis Hamilton looks like a lost soul in the paddock. Bloody Nora.
He just looks like a Ferrari driver in the paddock, let's be honest.
Oh my goodness.
But this is look, the thing is, you can look at it right now and do the standard F1 recency bias and just go, oh my God, it's all falling apart. Where 3 races ago at Silverstone, he was out qualifying Charles, who had no idea which way was forwards and backwards in qualifying that race, and we were all like, he's got it, he's back, let's go. So that's how quick this changes, and there's nothing to say that this car with his mate Loic Serra now in prime position there, with those two working together, that's all it takes. It takes a bit of teamwork, a little bit of trust between players, and then you've got a winning recipe. I think all the talk of him retiring is so premature, but it's currently built on the fact that Lewis was so negative after Hungary, and that's what we should be asking about. Not the base performance. It's why is his mentality is so low at the moment.
42 point shares, not base performance. Expanser. It absolutely is base performance. If you want to do one of these shares and disbelieve the evidence of your own eyes and ears as far as in race performance and only zoom in on qualifying, then that's cool. But ultimately, as I said at the outset, you only win points on a Sunday.
Yeah, but race performance.
As at the time of writing, Lewis Hamilton is 42 points adrift of Charles Leclerc. Riddle me this.
Sure, because race performance is a function of where you qualify in this rule set. These cars can't follow, they can't overtake, and the fact that literally less than a tenth of a second covered the top 4 in qualifying on Saturday should tell you everything you need to know. That you can be a tenth and a half off your teammate, and that's the difference between qualifying 12th and being on pole position. That's how fine the margins are,
Yuki
and
Tsunoda.
that's where you get your that's where you get your 42 points from.
Yuki was a 10th off Max in Q1 and still went out. Now that's symptomatic of how bad the Red Bull is, but that's the closest he's been ever since he made the move.
But you also don't
Yeah,
expect this sort of narrow
yeah,
margin
exactly.
of a field in a brand new rule set. You do at the end of a rule set, but you don't in 26.
Yeah, so yeah, and Lewis as well. Like in years past, like if he was like a tenth off his teammate, he's probably still making Q3 in that situation. But because the field gap is so small, you can't do that. I mean, we spotted all weekend that the rear of his car was definitely a lot looser than
Looser,
Charles
yeah, yeah,
was,
yeah, yeah.
and we could see that, and that's been a problem all year. And then you talk about the race pace. Well, as I said, he's been lifting and coasting for most of the races this year, because there's some kind of issue that they've got to manage. If you cannot drive the car in anger, you can't get the results. It's the one
And
time he's
it's
done it, he won the sprint race. Like,
and
I'm
it's
not saying that he would be
Yeah,
winning the championship or anything,
but
far from it. But
hang on, Baxter, a sprint race with caveats now. What happened to the disqualification the disqualification that happened?
It wasn't in
Well,
the sprint, though.
did they even measure the excessive plank wear after
doesn't
the
matter.
sprint?
Doesn't
Oh
matter. How do we
my
know it wasn't?
god!
But that was that.
Oh
This
my
is the
God.
thing. So China has completely derailed Ferrari's
Yeah.
season because they had a concept that they thought was going to work. That's why they changed 99% of it. I said it was foolish, right? I said they shouldn't have done it. They screwed up the setup in Australia. Okay, so we go again in China. They win the sprint race. They make a couple of changes which didn't work for them, and that's when they realised, okay, we've got a narrow performance window. And then the double DQ comes in, and they're like, okay, this concept hasn't worked. They can't go back to the 24 concept. That's dead and buried. They also have to think about next year as well because it's a major reg change. So now they kind of have this situation where what do we do? Well, you've got Charles Leclerc winning the race at relative ease in the first two stints, and then in the third stint, his performance disappears, and then you hear the stories that has been confirmed, but George Russell's theory was confirmed, and yet it's they've got the issue with plank wear, so they have to increase the tire pressure so as to alleviate those fears, which is partly why Charles' performance completely disappeared in that third stint. So it's just it's unacceptable for a team to be as close as they were last year to fall off as hard as they did, because they were one Carlos Sainz retirement away from winning the constructors championship by 1 point. And that's why I think people were starting to think, oh yeah, maybe Charles and Lewis could fight for the championship this year. Maybe they'll win the constructors championship this year. I don't think they would have done because McLaren have pushed on so hard. But when you throw all of that into the mix and you take away, the fact that we do hold Lewis to a higher standard, I think he's doing okay. I'm not saying he's doing well. I think he's doing okay. He could be doing better, absolutely. But it's just that's how it has been this season, and I think if he's still not on it next year with a new generation of car, which many people think will suit him better than this generation of car, then yes, we need to have the conversation to be like, Lewis, I think it's time, mate. But right now, I still think he's got a bit of time just to hold off that conversation. But next year it is essentially make or break for him.
But that does.
Baxley, super quickly, Shez, before I move this on. T minus 15, mate. We could go for another 60, but I know it's techie, isn't it? This is my fault. But Baxter, you say this as if this hasn't been a preeminent theme for the past 36 months now. I thought last year that the harbinger of the apocalypse for me, as far as Sir Lewis Hamilton's career, would be if George outqualifies him at Canada and Hungary and Silverstone. Now, if memory serves, I know Silverstone he got outqualified around, and I know that Canada, cheeky mistake in the third sector. I can't remember Hungary. So I feel like this has been, it's not brand new. Father Time is undefeated, undisputed, pound for pound, never lost a round.
The way I look at that, though, is that's a credit to George, because I think George is right up there with Charles, is one of the fastest on the grid. And we saw what he did in Canada. Incredible. And we know that Lewis has struggled with this generation of car, which, okay, for a 7-time world champion, that's unusual. You wouldn't expect it. But that's just how it's played out with this generation of car. And last year, we saw when Lewis could perform in the car, when the car was working and he could maximize his performance, he still did it. He won 2 races. And you look at the performance in Vegas as well, where he just blitzed past everybody apart from George, who had the advantage of pole and disappeared off into the distance. But Lewis still had it in him. This year, I don't think he's been able to do that because he's just lifting and coasting all the time.
I mean, as is Charles Leclerc, who, by the way, managed to put it on pole. But before I bury the lead, Sebastian and Chezinho, Safek says, I think Lewis is just hard on himself. He should be. I hope it won't lead to him giving up. This break can empower him yet again. James says, stiff chassis. Outlaw says Lewis Hamilton is elite but disappointed for years now. And I'd put forth this as a final supposition before we talk about who is the fastest proper on the grid. It's not like 2007 didn't happen. And I know you can argue about the tyres and all this favourable circumstance that he had. But I just think I'm still of the opinion, like friend of the channel, Peter D. Windsor, if it was Rye House Sir Lewis Hamilton, it was 2007, fire breathing Sir Lewis Hamilton. I bet my bottom dollar and my wife and my child that he would be less than 42 points away from Charles Leclerc.
Of course he would.
He could take that to the bank. Anyway, listen, fastest driver on the grid. I heard you say that, Baxter. I've been thinking about this for some while. In equal machinery, let me pitch it to you first, Chezinho, and this is going to become an argument with T minus 12 minutes left on the dock. He's the fastest driver on the current grid of the 20. Equal-ish machinery.
You know, I hate that question.
I don't care.
Because cars aren't equal, and like
I don't care. Can you give me an answer, Shez, and stop beating around the bush?
Yeah, sure. I think it's super tight, super tight at the top, but I'll give it probably to Leclerc.
Oh, typical Charles Fossey. What are we doing here?
I mean, I think he's the best.
Baxter, are you buying this this modern day journalazy hopium that Shez is selling?
So I have 3 drivers that for me are the fastest on the grid in my view. You've got Charles, you've got Max, and you've got George.
Yeah,
I think just below them you've got Lewis, Oscar, and Lando. I think that in that sort of step below.
Go on, we can do top 3 afterwards, but I'm going to need in the first
I would
instance
say
top 1. Baxter.
It's Charles, but I think George is getting ever closer and Max has been very surprising to me. Like I've always said, Max is a better Sunday driver than a Saturday driver, but some of his quality performances this year have just been like.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I was about to say, Baxter. That was going to be my instantaneous gut instinct rebuttal. Where have you guys not seen Suzuka qualifying this year, or Saudi Arabia, Jeddah Cornet, or the British Grand Prix? Do you know what I mean? You can pick your poison. When he's had his Weetabix, I'm not sure. I think Charles Leclerc, go on, I'll concede this. I think Charles Leclerc probably is quicker with Son's pressurised circumstance. Do you know what I mean? But with all of the F1 pomp and circumstance put in there, when all the chips are down, mate, how can you back against Maximin Verstappen to put down a lap around like a proper racing track? I don't know. I think he's over the course of one. It's track dependent, isn't it? But I think still.
I think it's car dependent too.
Yeah, but you've got to have it. You've got to benchmark it right. Equal-ish machinery. It's techie, this. So you boys are both going Charles. Go on then. Who's your number 2 after Charles?
Mine.
Go on, just fastest finger first.
Max.
And Batsy's going to say George Russell now, isn't he?
I'm torn. I think Max but again, George is right there.
Second fastest on the
I just think this year the weight of evidence is on him being second rather than George. I think at the end of last year I had it the other way around.
I think George consistently gets like a fantastic lap out of whatever machinery's put under him. But I haven't seen.
He's not blitzkrieg quick, is he?
Exactly. I haven't seen a magic stick it on pole, unbelievable.
Although
lap.
The other day, bloody Nora,
Canada was a good lap. Canada was a good lap, but that also that Mercedes was totally there that day, that weekend as well, right? Whereas Leclerc really shouldn't have qualified on pole in Hungary. That shouldn't have happened. And Max really shouldn't have qualified on pole in Japan either. That shouldn't have happened.
Well, we know what happened in Hungary because we were there. Like the conditions changed massively, and it seemed to affect the McLarens more than anybody else. They were doing 114s in Q2.
Yeah, but Leclerc was the only one that improved, wasn't he? Everyone else
absolutely, yeah. It hit everyone apart from Charles, but
yeah, got to be in it to win it.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
This is interesting. So Baxter's got Charles Leclerc and then Max, and so too you. I've got to invert that. I think I'll go Charles Leclerc second, but then George, is it? I don't know. No, I don't think George is quite blitzkrieg quick like that to talk to Charles or Max. Not when they both had their Weetabix. I think those are probably too quick. Is nobody going to talk about Lewis in this when he's had his Weetabix?
Not at the minute.
Because you're asking about current grid, aren't you? And it's so hard on current evidence to say.
So go on, let me make it easier for you. Lewis Hamilton in his prime then. Put Lewis Hamilton.
I'm not saying he's not in his prime. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying.
Sorry, you are saying that. So I was just about to say, Batsty, what are you talking about?
I don't see. Whatever.
Take 2018 Sir Lewis and put him in. Put him on the current grid. Where does he rank in that?
Oh, he's the fastest, and I think over one lap. I think over the majority of his career, I think the only guy that really got close to him in one lap pace was Seb.
Oh my God, who wasn't bad in one lap pace?
Like Seb was, as much as I don't like Seb, he was brilliant over one lap. Fernando over one lap as well at his best was very useful.
All right, so that's the thing there, right? Like Fernando for me is what George is now. Like George can get a tune out of whatever you put him in, but it won't be that ultimate last thousandth of a second lap that you'll get every now and again from Leclerc, Lewis in 2018 in that car, Max right now. It's just it's not a step. It's a fingernail or a toenail away from that level is where George is, I think.
So go on and give me your rankings. I need a top 5 with T-minus 7 minutes left on the docket.
Top 5, oh God.
Including we're playing Fantasy F1 now, including Prime Sir Lewis, Prime Alonso, and Prime Seb Vettel.
Alonso's not there for me. Like he's not top 5.
I don't think Alonso's top 5 either, to be fair. Safat says, Shez, I don't agree. Look at Yuki, who's Japanese fast. I honestly believe that Charles is more hungry than Max. Sir John, how very dare you, sir?
I'm seeing some of the comments. They seem to be missing the context. We're talking about one lap, not best driver overall.
Go on then. Go on then, Baxter. Hit me.
Okay, so I would say if you want me to include that, then I'd say Lewis 100% fastest. I would say Charles ahead of Prime Seb.
Oof.
Then Max, and then George. And just to give you a 2025 version, I'd go Charles, Max, George, Lando. And I think on current form, I would say Oscar.
Lando above Oscar in absolute terms pace. Chaos.
Over one lap, yes.
You're a chaos merchant, Sir Baxter. And again, it's all track dependent, to be fair, but I feel like you're a chaos merchant. Not that. 2024, Oscar. True.
Oscar's cleaner under pressure. I think if Lando hooks up a lap, he will more often than not come out on top of Oscar. But the speed, he doesn't hook up his laps.
But the speed. I hear you. I suppose.
We're talking raw speed.
Fair.
Yeah, but I think Oscar's thinking his way around the lap a bit more. Like
Oscar's improved so much this year. It's unreal.
But I think that's deliberate. Like I think Oscar could attack the lap the same way that Lando does, but he knows there's no fruit to be reaped from that. Whereas Lando just goes for it, and if he ends up in the wall, he ends up in the wall. And the problem with that car is that it often just wants to spit him out into a wall.
Go on then, Shez. Hit me with yours, inclusive of a prime Sir Lewis, a prime Fernando, and a prime Seb Vettel. Give me your top 5 quickest drivers and the current grid, of course. Give me your top 5 drivers. Speed.
Sure. So quickest. Yeah, okay. It'd be Lewis right up there at the top. I think Leclerc's there as well. It's marginal between those two, and probably marginal between Max in that top 3 as well. I just think that's such a tight triple header. Speed. Okay. Oh my God.
No. I'm that's to myself. Go on, Karen.
Right. And then I'd stick in George, Vettel. I'd probably go in that order.
George quicker than Seb. Behave yourself.
Yeah, I think so.
I've hurried you into a mistake there, Shez. I do
I,
apologise.
I don't think so. And you want a top 5 in the current grid? I think it's Leclerc, Max, George. I'm going to say Lando, and then why not? I'm going to stick a random in there. Isaac Hadjar's been qualifying his car pretty well. Stick him in there.
I mean, I didn't mean for it to become the insanity podcast, Shez, but do you know what I mean? You've just took it there. Go on then. I'm going to go. Mine's going to get very techie here. Do I have to put Max top in terms of absolute pace? It's so hard. Wait, how can I not do Shez on the back of what we've seen this year? I just don't know that he was 18-1 to put it on pole in Suzuka. How?
He's very good.
Yeah.
He's very good.
Come on,
I don't think it's.
Come on.
Like I wouldn't have an argument with you if you did put him.
Say that again, Baxty.
Peak Lewis. If you're talking peak,
he was rapid.
Like
he was blitzkrieg quick, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Go on. Here's how I'll caveat it. If I'm desperate to get some Max glazing in and put him top around the Suzuka, a Jeddah Corniche, and a Silverstone. If Max has had his Weetabix, I don't think there's a man in history who's going to out-qualify him, you know? That's how I'll frame it. If we're talking, like, he's that type of track with, like, lots of medium and high-speed turns, I don't think there's a man in history that's going to be in equal-ish machinery. 2021 showed us that, right? Like, I just don't think there's a man who's driven an F1 car or anything else that will beat a Maximilian Verstappen. You might catch him at a Monaco or like a Hungary or an Austria, do you know what I mean? But even then, didn't he out-qualify? I don't know. I've got to go Max. Just recency bias, Max Glaze settings. I will go Max, and then I will go Charles, and then I will go. Actually, that's a lie. That's a lie. I will go Max, and then I will go Seb, and that's a lie. I will go Max, and then I will go Lewis, and then I will go Seb, and then I will go Charles. That's techie, isn't it? That's my top 4. And then current grid, I will go Max, and I will go Charles, and then I will go George, and then I think Oscar, and then I think Lando. There we go, done. Bloody Nora. Interesting, eh? There's your top 5. I feel like that needed 60 minutes in and of itself. We're going to have to revert back, I think. Attic, you're an absolute legend. Fangio, Senna, Schumacher, Max, Lewis. Who said anything about Fangio, Attic? Just like you're worse than Chezinho, a.k.a. the A-side, a man who doesn't like to answer the question being asked.
Because it's so difficult to answer these questions, Cameron. Like it's like F1's not sprinting. It's difficult.
My old teacher used to say, "You've always got to read the question and answer it." Do you know what I mean? Don't answer some question that hasn't been asked. What are we doing? Techie. Go on then. You guys have been legends. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sir John Perry, as always. Issa, Nando, Neil. Techier than techie things. I mean, it's always going to be when you get Chezinho and Baxty on a cheeky shakedown. Again, Sir Baxty, legendary, of Shifting Happens and Baxty BF1. Go and check out those God tier YouTube channels. And Chezinho, aka the A-side of the Tide GP podcast. Shout out to Cousin Amar. I will come for you at some stage in a not too distant future. Catch up a crawl, banter and debate coming. I will bury you where you stand, good sir. Between now and next time, as always, Shakedowners, you guys have been legends. Do me a favour, like, comment, share. If you're listening on a podcasting platform, 5 stars and a follow. Between now and next time, remember to look but never stare.